Grandmama left me the house, but she didn't tell me about the woman in the attic, 17-year-old Catherine wrote in her diary. Every night, she paces the floor above my bedroom, humming the same lullaby Mama used to sing. But Mama's been dead for 10 years, and the woman upstairs sounds exactly like her. Magnolia House stood like a monument to faded glory in Savannah's historic district. 3 stories of antebellum architecture, wrapped in climbing vines and memories that clung like Spanish moss. Catherine Beaumont had inherited it from her grandmother just 2 months ago, along with enough money to maintain it properly. What she hadn't inherited was an explanation for the footsteps. They began the first night she moved in, soft but persistent, pacing the length of the attic floor directly above her bedroom, back and forth, until nearly dawn. When Catherine investigated the next morning, she found nothing but dust and old furniture draped in white sheets. By the 3rd night, the humming started. It was barely audible through the old plaster walls, a melody that made Catherine's breath catch in her throat. She knew that song. Her mother had hummed it during Catherine's childhood, usually while brushing her daughter's hair before bed. But Margaret Beaumont had died of consumption when Catherine was 7, buried in Bonaventure Cemetery beneath a marble angel that wept real tears when it rained. Catherine wrote about it all in her diary, the leather-bound journal her grandmother had given her on her 16th birthday. Writing helped her process the impossible sounds, the growing certainty that she wasn't alone in the house. On her 4th night, Catherine climbed to the attic. The narrow staircase creaked with each step, announcing her presence to whatever waited above. At the top, she pushed open the heavy wooden door and stepped into moonlight filtered through dusty windows. The attic was exactly as she'd found it before. Trunks, furniture, portraits of stern-faced relatives she'd never met. But in the center of the room, the dust on the floor had been disturbed. Footprints, bare feet, small, delicate, a woman's feet. "Hello," Catherine whispered. "Is someone there?" The humming stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than sound. Catherine returned to her room, but sleep wouldn't come. She sat by her window, watching moonlight play across the garden where her grandmother had grown prize-winning magnolias. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell chimed midnight. The pacing resumed. This time, Catherine didn't hesitate. She grabbed her oil lamp and climbed the stairs again, determined to confront whatever haunted her inheritance. The attic door stood open. Inside, a figure stood silhouetted against the far window. A woman in a white nightgown, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. She faced away from Catherine, looking out at the garden below. "Mama?" Catherine's voice was barely a breath. The figure turned slowly. Catherine nearly dropped her lamp. It was her mother's face, exactly as Catherine remembered it. Young, beautiful, unmarked by the illness that had taken her life. But her eyes held depths of sorrow that seemed to span decades. "My darling girl," the woman said, her voice like wind through magnolia leaves. "You've grown so beautiful." Catherine couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "You're not real. You can't be real." "I'm as real as love, as real as longing." The woman stepped closer. "I've been waiting for you to come home." "Home? Mama, you died. I watched them put you in the ground." Margaret's expression grew sad. "Bodies die, sweet child. But a mother's love? That endures beyond death, beyond time, beyond reason." Catherine set down her lamp with trembling hands. "Why are you here? Why now?" "Because this house remembers. Every joy, every sorrow, every whispered prayer. Your grandmother understood. She knew I'd never truly left." "Grandmama knew you were here?" Margaret smiled. "Who do you think taught her to listen for the sounds only the heart can hear?" Catherine sank to her knees on the dusty floor. "I've missed you so much. And I've missed you. Every day, every night. I've watched you grow from that little girl who cried for her mama into this strong, brave woman. I don't feel strong. I feel lost." Margaret knelt beside her daughter. "That's why I stayed, to guide you, to protect you, to love you until you don't need me anymore. I'll always need you. No, darling, you'll always carry me with you, but that's different from needing me. Margaret's form flickered like candlelight. I can't stay much longer. The living and the dead aren't meant to share the same space. Panic seized Catherine's chest. Don't leave me again, please. I'm not leaving, I'm letting go. There's a difference. Margaret reached out as if to touch Catherine's face, though her fingers passed through like mist. Do you remember what I used to tell you before you went to sleep? Catherine closed her eyes, remembering. That love never dies, it just changes form. Like caterpillars becoming butterflies, like seeds becoming flowers. Margaret's voice was growing fainter. I was the seed, Catherine. You are the flower. The attic was growing brighter, though dawn was still hours away. Margaret's figure began to dissolve into points of light that danced like fireflies in the darkness. Wait, Catherine called out. What am I supposed to do with the house? With my life? Margaret's laughter was like silver bells. Live it, darling. Fill these rooms with laughter again. Plant a garden. Fall in love. Have children who will run through these halls and play hide-and-seek in the magnolia trees. How will I know if I'm making the right choices? Trust your heart. It knows the way home. The lights swirled once more around Catherine, warm as a mother's embrace, then faded into nothing. The attic fell silent. Catherine remained on her knees for a long time, tears streaming down her face. But they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of gratitude, of release, of understanding. When she finally stood, she noticed something on the floor where her mother had knelt. A single magnolia blossom, perfect and white, though no magnolia trees bloomed in November. Catherine picked up the flower and held it close. It smelled like her childhood, like bedtime stories and lullabies, like unconditional love. The next morning, she began writing letters to distant cousins scattered across the South, to old friends who'd moved away after graduation, to the young teacher who'd been courting her before her grandmother's death claimed all her attention. Magnolia House had been silent too long. By Christmas, the house buzzed with life again. Catherine's cousin Rebecca came to stay, bringing her twin boys who delighted in exploring every hidden corner. The young teacher, James, became a frequent dinner guest, his eyes lighting up whenever Catherine entered the room. The attic remained quiet, but sometimes when Catherine worked in the garden, planting spring bulbs, she could swear she heard humming carried on the breeze. Not sad or longing anymore, but joyful, content. The magnolia trees bloomed early that year, their white blossoms luminous in the moonlight. Catherine liked to sit beneath them in the evenings, writing in her diary, planning her future in the house where generations of Beaumont women had loved and lost and found their way back to hope. On the anniversary of her mother's death, Catherine climbed to the attic one last time. No footprints disturbed the dust. No humming echoed through the rafters. But on the windowsill where her mother had stood, a single magnolia blossom rested like a blessing. Catherine smiled and whispered, "Thank you, Mama, for everything." The wind sighed through the eaves, and somewhere in its voice Catherine heard her answer, "Thank you, my darling girl, for learning how to live." Did this story remind you that love transcends even death? Do you believe our departed loved ones watch over us in ways we might not expect? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you believe stories about the enduring bonds between mothers and daughters need to be heard, don't forget to follow the Frontline Voices.